you're looking to invest in physical precious metals or convert your 401k to a precious metals backed IRA, please consider making your investment with our trusted partner, MetalStacks. Their prices regularly beat the big sites and they have no credit card fees or minimums. Shipping is free for orders over $500. Just visit metalstacks.com/dwalker or get there from our website, freedomstate.us. If you're interested in the IRA conversion, drop me a message at danielle@freedomstate.us and I can get you connected with their white glove service. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to For the Love of Freedom. Today is Wednesday, August 20th. It's 10 a.m. Central. The month is flying away at record pace. I'm your host, Danielle Walker, and we're coming to you live on Voice of the People USA TV and radio network on Rumble, X, YouTube, and Facebook. Wherever you're watching or listening, please like it, share it, leave comments for us, and we would love to check those out. And the comments help us so much with the algorithm, so we appreciate you. On this show, we meet people who have rejected the status quo, have broken with convention, and each in their own way are working to bring freedom to the world. So today, my guest is a friend and a local hero, Dr. Evelyn Griffin. She is a board-certified OBGYN, and she's founder of an incredible event that we'll be talking about today called All Things Wellness. Let me bring her on. Welcome, Evelyn. Thank you so much for coming on with me today. It's such a pleasure.
Thank you very much for having me. That's an honor. I don't know if I could accept the title of hero. Not necessarily quite feeling like a hero, but I appreciate the kind words.
Well, you are a hero, whether you acknowledge it or not, because I know that the way that you operated during COVID, the way that you spoke up and have been just such a woman of truth and honor, even though in a lot of ways, in my view, the kind of the anchors of your profession have really tried to take things another way. You have stood firm, and you've held to your convictions. So in my book, that makes you a hero. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. There's, of course, a deeper story to all of that, as I'm sure you will dive in. That's what I love about your show is the deeper dive.
We will. And I love to start out every show with a scripture to frame the conversation. So let me do that. Today's scripture is from Psalm chapter 52, and it's verse 8, and it says, "But I am a flourishing olive tree, anointed in the house of God. I trust in the unending love of God. His passion toward me is forever and ever." And I brought that scripture today because I love the picture and because I believe that's the goal, right? Prospering physically and spiritually. And to me, that sums up what I've seen of your approach. I think that's kind of a beautiful picture of what it is that you are trying to bring to the world, Evelyn. When you think of freedom and your place of bringing it to people, as individuals or bringing it generally to society at large, what do you see? What is it that's your desire to bring?
Desire to bring, if I were to say it in one word, it would be community.
Mm.
I feel like we are an intricate web of human souls woven into one another, and unfortunately, everyday conveniences and technology kind of is breaking up that web to where we're more and more individualized, and we are. Given that message as well, that we are individuals, we should stand alone and we can be strong alone, etc. And that's really not how God created us. We are
Yeah.
From one being, and then everything came from that, and we're intricately connected as a web. So that was, you mentioned the event. That was one of the main goals of the event, is to bring people together to community, to where they can have real FaceTime with one another, connect, see each other smile, see the emotions, share information with one another. And in this day and age where the buzzword of disinformation is out there, I
Oh
mean,
my gosh.
the information there, it's just information. True, there can be false information out there, but we can discern better when we are doing it together. rather
Yeah.
than sitting as silos home alone on social media. So the event, All Things Wellness, I kind of feel like in my mind, we were talking with my husband Joe, who's my absolute anchor in life. We were talking about this kind of being like the antithesis to lockdowns.
Mm,
Lockdowns during pandemic was just that, division. We were separated. We were turned into individuals that were alone, home alone.
yeah.
And so this is kind of the opposite. And that actually, I'm happy to say last year's feedback from last year's event was just that people came and said, we expected to learn some good information about health and wellness and meet some providers in our community that work towards health and wellness, but the overarching theme was this positive feeling of togetherness and of positive community building, and it was really nice. And now that it's been 1 year since the event, um, people are telling me how much that has meant to them over the year, and that they've kept in touch with some of the people that they've met at the event, which just means a lot to me. That was
Yeah.
the goal, the ultimate goal of the event.
Well, I have to say, I went last year and I was just, I was telling you yesterday that the amazing thing to me about it, or the thing that struck me, because of course I didn't really know what to expect. It's
It
the
was the
first
first
time,
one.
it was the
We
first
didn't
time
know too
event.
much.
Exactly. And the thing I loved about it was that, you know, for people who have been on some kind of truth journey related to their health, whether they are suffering chronic illness, whether they are just understanding that the food we eat is not necessarily good for us. The water we drink is not necessarily good for us. Wherever people are in kind of their journey of uncovering the truth about
Mhm.
the environment that we're living in, and the environmental
The
toxins.
AirPods we use sometimes.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
I was
Or
just
what.
using it because we had noise outside, so for the convenience of you being able to hear me, I put in the AirPods. But yeah, it's everywhere, trying
And
to
I
be mindful of not erasing everything out of your life, because then we'd really be living in a cave,
Well,
but
it's
trying to
true.
minimize and be aware of what our environment is doing to us.
It is, but I think what you said, that togetherness of people kind of all coming wherever they are in their journey of discovery, and seeking, the right path for their own health, wherever they are, and that was very evident in the event last year. I think it was the speakers were, I think, just really beautifully frank. And for people who have gone to conventional doctors their whole lives, to hear some of these people get up and say, these providers get up and say things like, if you want a cure, the only cure for addiction is Jesus. I was like, my eyebrows got really big. I was like, oh, we're going there. We're really going there. That's so wonderful. Like, somebody speak the truth here. So, anyway, congratulations on last year. And I'm looking forward to this year. I want to get into it a little bit more later in the show. But before, let's talk a little bit more about Dr. Evelyn Griffin. So, you've been on the State of Freedom a couple times, but for people who are new viewers, would you talk about your background and kind of give us some flavor of where you came from, and kind of bring us up to speed through COVID? Because that was such a pivotal time, especially for people in your profession. Of course, it was a pivotal time for everybody for different reasons, but I love to kind of get your journey. Um, so go for it.
Sure. Yeah. So there's a lot of flavor at the beginning, not of my own making. I was born in Poland during communism, and when I was 5 years old, my parents defected. And so they brought. Initially, they were going to defect when I was a year old, and they would be allowed to do so legally if they left a child behind. And that was just the rule at the time. And often families did that where they left the youngest child. And I was the youngest, so I would have been it to be left. And that youngest child would be left to be raised by aunts and uncles as their own child, for example.
Wow.
But the idea was that the government felt that you would come back for this child, so you weren't really defecting. There was a reason for you to come back, and they
Yeah.
could also save face that really the whole family didn't leave. But my parents thankfully said, it's all or none. They waited out another 4 years and then escaped through an Austrian refugee camp, and then through a legal immigration process out of the refugee camp into Canada, we immigrated to Canada. So that's where I was raised in Canada, mainly in Toronto. But I think my background of my Polish background and having my parents having gone through that experience had shaped a lot of my way of looking at things a little bit differently and a little bit of out of the box thinking. So then I did my undergrad at University of Toronto, and at the time, and I was trying for medical school. The spots were very few in Canada. It was a little bit of an unusual environment in terms of medical school applications. So they were actually accepting more Americans than Canadians. So I ended up just not wanting to go through a PhD and waiting a few years before reapplying. So I went to an offshore school called Ross University, and that turned out to be a huge blessing. I felt I got a fantastic education, but also met my husband, my future husband, Joe Griffin. When we finished med school, we started residency at LSU New Orleans. I did OBGYN training, and he did vascular, general surgery, and then vascular training.
Was he from here, Evelyn?
He is
Okay.
Cajun. He is my reason for being here. Usually when somebody's not from Louisiana, they're married to somebody who's got their feet stuck in the Louisiana mud, as they say. So I learned that. But during residency, I fell in love with the culture. So I was a willing participant to settle down. So he was born in Galliano, so he's from the Lafourche Parish area.
Oh yeah, near me.
Down the bayou. So after residency, in New Orleans, we settled in Baton Rouge. And there, the first job we took, he's still in the same job. First job I took was 15 years of typical OBGYN work, which is clinic practice, and then delivering in labor and delivery, delivering the patients, OB patients, and gynecologic surgery. Very happy to have been able to operate on the Da Vinci robotic operating system as soon as it was FDA approved back in 2005. So that was a fantastic part of my career. But about 5 years in, I started getting in this sense that, people are, I went into my field where typically childbearing age women are quite healthy. And I was very happy to engage in their obstetrics health during their pregnancy. And then I would look across the dinner table, and then Joe would be talking about his patients in the profession he chose, a very sick, chronically ill patients, heart disease, diabetes, where he was having to improve their blood supply to their limbs and save them from amputations, for example, because of severe chronic illness. So we would have these conversations about different, how we managed patient cases, and the contrast was just stark. My patients were healthy, his were not. We were doing different things in our fields. But then after another 5 years, it was almost like things were catching up with my patients to getting sicker. Like we were starting to look at chronic kidney disease is popping up in my patients, not just acute kidney insults, and hypertension that was hard to manage. And then, of course, that would roll into when the patient would get pregnant into preeclampsia. And more patients were getting preeclampsia. And I was just making this observation after about 10 years of practice. We would sit at the dinner table with the kids, and we had this theme of everybody mention either something new they learned or an observation from the day. And my observation from the day was that, I'm observing this pace of disease. And if we were to take diabetes as an example, if we had this pace of diabetes that is skyrocketing back in, 4,000 years ago, we would be extinct by now. We wouldn't make it, and so after a few years of this, Um, I would petition my workplace for more time per patient visit because we just weren't accomplishing much in 15 minutes. Sometimes those 15-minute slots were double or triple booked. So, I mean, realistically, how much can you do in 5 minutes?
Right.
And
Well, especially as these cases get more and more complicated, right? 15 minutes might have been sufficient for a healthy 23-year-old
no
old.
issue.
Yeah.
Correct. Correct. And so the time slots never increased, but so after a while, I was like, okay, there's got to be something more, and I started to discover that I had a passion for learning more about preventative health, and then it kind of came to a peak when two loved ones in my family were affected. One was my mother, who started to develop dementia, and I just thought, there's got to be something more to be able to at least slow this down,
Right.
if not revert it. And then my husband, he was diagnosed with high cholesterol, and it was kind of a typical visit in the hallway of, oh yeah, you've got high cholesterol. The doctor was like, let me just prescribe a statin for you, and that was it. And he came home, and I just remember just being completely taken aback, thinking, okay, I know I'm not a prescriber of blood pressure medications or statins for our patients. That's not necessarily my everyday experience with my patients, but there's got to be more to it than that. You didn't get any counseling, nothing, a
Right.
follow-up appointment. And the follow-up appointment was, well, this is probably genetic. You'll probably have another medication or a higher dose, and another medication stacked onto it over time. And I just remember my brain just rejected that. I was like,
Yeah.
there's got to be a different way. We can't just submit ourselves. And Joe's a doctor. I mean, we conduct ourselves to where we don't expect special treatment, but I just thought, okay, if that's what we're getting, then the patients are definitely getting less.
Right.
you know Less. I mean, there's zero
100%.
counseling.
Yeah.
So that's when I started looking into what's more out there, and was really convinced that lifestyle is a big factor. So went to get certified in lifestyle medicine, which has become a board certification in itself. So got that, and was able to do a lot of that. I really believe in practicing what I preach. So I was able to do this lifestyle medicine to a T, but really saw the challenges of doing it in a family, with the children,
Yeah.
and then let's say older Cajun family members that are very intimately tied to their foods that their grandparents made. That
Right.
unfortunately, those ingredients like flour, for example, is not made like it was 30 years
Right.
ago, so, or even 20 years ago. So I saw those challenges and thought, okay, well, there's got to be more to it. And then, of course, started noticing more and more environmental toxins
Let me
that lifestyle.
before you go into that part, would you talk a little bit
Sure.
more about this lifestyle certification and like what does that mean? What does it look like in your day-to-day life? It seems intuitive, but maybe it's not.
Oh, sure. No, thank you for asking that. That's true. Because for me, it was intuitive, but that's one thing I have found I have to learn what people know, and there's so much they don't, and I have
Yeah.
to learn how to communicate that. So around that time, I think I'll explain it through a mnemonic from Barbara O'Neill. So Barbara O'Neill kind of came into my life around that time. I don't know her personally, but it came into my life through just learning and studying, and I felt compelled to learn what is it in our lifestyle that is helpful to your point, to your question, that I can learn from the most sage elderly teachers before they pass on from this earth.
Yeah.
And not that Barbara O'Neill is that old, but found her. So she is from Australia. She's a naturopath from Australia that over around the time of COVID, even before then, was ostracized because she was really saying a lot of things that could be treated early through lifestyle. So I'll share with you her. In fact, I kind of pulled this off my fridge because, as a testament to practicing what we preach, I wrote this down years ago, and I still have it on our fridge. This is her mnemonic, and she summarizes all things lifestyle in the mnemonic "Sustain Me." So it's basically starting with the S. sunshine, the use of sunshine. And sunshine in general is many different wavelengths of light, many that we cannot see. For example, one hot topic right now is infrared light, red light.
Hmm.
Infrared light we cannot see, but we can feel it. That's heat. And it penetrates deeper into our body. It's a longer wavelength, penetrates deeper into our body. In fact, it penetrates to the level of our mitochondria, the powerhouse of our cells. And basically, in a very simple way of saying it, it energizes it. It makes it easier for that powerhouse to make energy for our body. So just being out in the sun exposes us to that and lets us absorb just God's creation of the sun and is life-giving. And if life-giving sounds, kind of hyperbolic, anyone who's ever planted a seed in the ground and watches it with and without sunlight, it's not going to grow. With
Yeah.
sunlight, you see it just flourish, develop different colors, turn into a plant, a bigger plant. So it's truly life-giving. So if a plant can do that from the sun, there's got to be something in there for us. So the use of sun and what I recommend there, do you want me to do that? Do you want me
Yeah,
to
please.
say general lifestyle recommendations? So with the sun, it's good for us all to have at least 15 minutes of exposure. Everybody's going to be a little bit different. If somebody hasn't been out in the light for 10 years, they work night shift and they're in the office,
Hmm.
they're very fair skinned, you want to just start off with 5 minutes and work your way up. I'd say about at minimum 15 minutes. You do want to avoid the high UV index times, which in Louisiana is about between 10 till 2 p.m. We still do need some UV light.
Yeah.
UV is very sanitizing. We actually use it in operating rooms. We have these little robots that look like R2D2s that go into an operating room and they beam out UV rays to sanitize a room. So it's sanitizing, but we don't want too much of it. It can be damaging.
Yeah.
So if we avoid 10 till 2, or at least be in shade during that time, we do get the other wavelengths of light that are good for us. So that's sunlight. One thing that is more commonly known is that sun exposure to our skin allows our skin to make vitamin D. Vitamin D is very good for our body, has numerous functions in our body. It increases the transcription factors for so many genes in our body that allow our immune system to work more optimally, etc. Many different applications. We can supplement with vitamin D. D3 plus K2 is the package deal that you would like to have, but the most efficient way, best way, is through sunshine. Okay, and then out of Sustain Me in lifestyle, the next thing is the use of water. We want to drink about half of our body weight in water. So if somebody's 200 pounds, we want to do 100 ounces of water for good hydration, makes our kidneys work better and that kind of thing. Next one is sleep. So sleep, very good to get regular hours of sleep.
Evades so many of us.
Yes, absolutely. And I would say anywhere between 7 to 9 hours is good. About the same time every day. So if you go to bed around 10ish, you want to be going to bed about 10ish at the same time every day. The ideal would be to go to bed when it gets dark and get up when it's bright, if possible. But if not, if you're going to bed after dark, to try to limit how much LED light exposure we get with either turning down all the lights or getting red light bulbs. There's literally different red wavelength light bulbs that you can get nowadays, and we have that. It's kind of funny coming into our house. It looks like, as it says, it looks like the red light district. What are our neighbors thinking? And they just laugh it off. They're like, we just assume you guys have a disco. So we have red lights, or we have those blue blocker
Mhm.
sunglasses that they can make look pretty cool nowadays. So sleep is very important. That's when we heal. And then Sustain Me. So the next one is, this is my favorite, Trust in God.
Mm.
Having faith life. There have been countless studies that have been done to show populations of cohorts of populations, similar comorbidities. That means similar level of illness. when are they likely to die? And those who have faith in their life are much more likely to live longer and live healthier till their
Mm.
last day. So it's something that even science, cannot dispute. Next one is abstaining from drugs, alcohol, all the toxic stuff, vaping, especially.
Mhm.
That's a hot topic now that we definitely need to avoid. The I stands for inhaling, so deep breath exercises. That's something that Joe and I will do with Wim Hof exercises, like these deep, deep exercises. But it doesn't have to be any particular regimen. It just has to be to where you are fully inhaling your rib cage, belly breathing, pulling down your diaphragm so you can really expand your lungs. Um, we started doing that on the regular. We do that pretty much daily nowadays, all of these as part of our routine. But the breathing we started at the beginning of COVID because we saw people getting on ventilators and pulmonary lung damage from
Mhm.
were intubated. So we're like, okay, we really need to be able to expand our lung volume, really open up our lungs, and you can oxygenate much better that way also. So important to do that. Finally, when you do take nice, slow, deep breaths, what happens is when you're inhaling, you are um, inhaling, exhaling, you're activating your parasympathetics, especially, and you're calming down your heart rate. So you're kind of bringing down that cortisol drive, that stress
Yeah.
drive. Especially at the exhale. So when you're exhaling, nice, smooth, long exhale, that really tends to calm the body. Okay, and then nutrition, that's a whole big topic with diet and all that, and we can pick that up a little bit more. And then, so sustain me, and I'd just like to give her credit. So
Yeah.
moderation and exercise. So moderation is everything in moderation. Like, for example, I do not like to use my AirPods. There is not enough studies to show safety for our brain and
Yeah.
having devices near our heads, etc. So where I see moderation is I do have these conveniences. For example, it's so loud right outside my window, you wouldn't be able to hear me. So I'll use it for a situation like this. But when I am working around the house or cleaning, I'll put my phone on speaker and I'll
Yeah.
have it set aside and not, definitely not in my bra. I try to set it on the table. So just having moderation in different things, and then finally exercise, that is another life-giving, just
Yeah.
movement in general. So
That's it. You don't use it, you lose it.
absolutely, yes. So yes, yeah, so obviously a lot deeper and more in depth we can go in each one, but that's a
No,
little bit
that's
of a summary.
super helpful, and I love Barbara O'Neill. She has a big place in our home, so, yeah. Alright, so pick up from okay, you got your lifestyle certification, and then that's where I cut you off.
Then at that time, that was actually 2019, and I went to do a conference for lifestyle medicine. We went to Australia at that point. I had been awarded a teaching award, and my workplace had a relationship with Queensland University in Australia. So we took the family there.
Amazing.
And when we were there, we were really able to live the full lifestyle extent. And that was kind of the peak, the excitement, like this is possible. And then COVID hit. And then COVID kind
So you
of
got a
just
taste of it, and
showed.
it pulled
Yes,
it
but
all
it
away.
it kind of was like, okay, now here are all the challenges with lifestyle. Every single aspect of this lifestyle framework was impacted by COVID, and then um, I guess to really summarize the second part of my educational ventures, seeing how we call it spikenopathies or spikeopathies, where the spike protein in somebody, either from the illness or from the vaccine, can affect their health. That's what kind of got me into functional medicine and learning functional medicine, which is the root cause medicine, and looking at it from the level of the biochemistry of the cell, the functioning of the cell, to the level of the mitochondrion. And that's where, because of different studies and understanding of how our health is impacted, I came to realize that we need to understand, well, I need to understand a little bit more beyond the general macro lifestyle things that can make our health better. On the micro level, what do we also need to understand?
Okay.
So I went into functional medicine training for that. So that's kind of summarizes my professional journey.
And give us a little bit of flavor of some, maybe like an example of something that would not necessarily be so obvious to people that you learned in your functional medicine training that you're using, that maybe you wouldn't have gotten in conventional.
Um, okay, so this would be in the functional medicine world. I'll give you two examples that are perhaps known about and that are just general topics. They're not too
Yeah.
specific, but vitamin D, for example, you hear being talked about all the time, but in the conventional world, it's kind of downplayed. Specifically during COVID, we were told not to test for it, which was surprising because that's when studies were coming out showing that, if there was a certain level of vitamin D. If patients had at least over a level of 60, then you would have a lesser chance of dying from COVID, for example. And it's, of course, hard to study this down to exact causation. We call it association. And it's because vitamin D has so many roles in our body. But nonetheless, we were told to not study it. And then going over into the functional medicine world, it is just kind of a known absolute truth that vitamin D is very important. And if you're not going to get it from the sun, you should supplement and you should check your blood levels to make sure that you're absorbing it correctly,
Yeah.
that this is a foundational component of your health. Another example would be omega-3, fish oils. So that's something that you hear about all the time. But in the functional medicine world, we really do a deep dive into how much you would take, and the numerous reasons, the numerous functions that the omega-3 fatty acids have in your body. So it wouldn't be just a quick prescription. It would be a deep dive into how are you deficient? Why are you deficient? Are you, I guess this would be a good way of summarizing it. In, I guess, the conventional world, the more common application is we know omega-3 fatty acids are good for you, so either eat more salmon or here, take these tablets. The functional approach would be those two things as well as this is exactly how much salmon you should be eating to get this much omega-3. And if you're going to supplement, then this is how much supplementation you should take. And then let's check you, not just normal, regular blood levels, but let's check it in your red blood cell, because that's where we're going to see if your vitamin or if your omega-3 is actually absorbing.
Okay.
So
Awesome.
it's a little bit more in depth, not surface. You could be taking these supplements, but not knowing if or eating the foods, but not knowing if your body is able to even absorb them. So functional
I love
medicine would
that.
go deeper. If you're not absorbing, then the deeper dive would be, okay, now we know you're not absorbing it well, your levels are not good. Why are you not absorbing them? So the next step is what's going on in the gut where it's supposed to be absorbed. Let's analyze your gut function.
Yeah, I love that, and I love that your journey has taken you, kind of first to the natural things and then deeper into what's really going on in the body, because I think if we lived in a world that was not, so invaded by environmental toxins, that are depleting our body of the things that we're putting into it to start with, then you probably wouldn't have had to go to the second phase. You could have stayed in the natural realm, and that's wonderful. But I think where we are now, there's so many chemicals being sprayed, whether, the geoengineering, or even if you're just, near some kind of agricultural development where they're spraying, doing crop dusting, that's being sprayed on you, and those chemicals will have an impact on the way that your body reacts. I mean, the chemicals will have, or sorry, a an impact on your body, and a deleterious effect on
Hmm.
some functions because of what it does to the mineral interactions and the vitamin interactions, the water interactions, all of that plays a part. So understanding what's really going on in the body is unfortunately really needed in the world we live in
Mhm.
right now. And I pray that one day it's not so necessary, and
Absolutely.
we could just eat something and know that the vitamins are getting in and the body is absorbing it. That's
Oh, yes.
getting back to the natural place. That will be an amazing development in our lives.
Absolutely, absolutely. And knowing these things, having better, health literacy in these things is kind of what this event is about too. Is, for example, what you just mentioned, eating a food and not questioning it. We traveled to Europe, to humble Poland last year. Not that affluent of a country, although their economy is doing well, but over time, I mean, just suppressed by communism, without
Yeah.
borders for a long time. I mean, just a poor country, and yet they have one wonderful aspect, many wonderful aspects, but one in particular is that they do not allow glyphosate, which is
Mm.
Roundup, on their crops. So when we went there, we absolutely, one of my favorite foods is pierogi, which is our version of Italian ravioli. So a lot
Mhm.
of pasta. And I said, I don't care if my joints hurt. I'm going to eat so much pasta
Yep, good
that,
girl.
here people's joints hurt
Yeah.
because of the gluten and the pesticides that we don't realize that have trickled down into the food, and it gets stuck in our joints and it causes inflammation and you're hurting or you're bloated. It's
Mm.
for same reason, and so that will happen to me if I overdo it. And so I said, I we only go to Poland so often. Last time I was 14 years old, so I'm gonna binge on all this
That's
food.
right.
Another one of those things of moderation. I'll
Mhm.
binge once in a while, and I ate so much and I felt fantastic. I was shocked.
That's
So
amazing. So it is
the
possible.
it is possible, yes.
How
So
wonderful.
yeah.
Well, let's get into the event a
Yeah.
little bit, unless I didn't wanna cut you off from your storytelling either. I might
No,
be.
no, I guess, to mention just what happened during COVID,
Oh, yeah.
and I do appreciate you calling me a hero. I'm far from that. I do have many heroes that I look up to, but just really far from being a hero. Honestly, I like to connect with people on that because it is a confusing time, and I'm open to talking about it.
Yeah.
And that's something that I don't want us to not talk about it. Some people are like, well, it's over. Why would we talk about it? And it's, obviously very far from over. But because I acknowledge that it was a very confusing time. I myself, when going into the pandemic started, I like to say I had kind of had the scales on my eyes myself, and as a physician, I was watching the pandemic very closely because I had a feeling it would come to our shores when it first erupted in
Yeah.
Wuhan. And I thought, okay, it's coming here. I should know everything about it because this is going to impact, my knowledge is going to impact my care of patients. So if anyone followed it very closely from the beginning, it was very odd. So you knew something unnatural was going on. Um, and, uh, and so, but so I really distrusted the entire process. But when the vaccine did come out, I personally, I was in the thick of trying to take care of patients like anybody else, trying to figure out, do we mask, do we not? I really, at the beginning, felt that it was understandable if places closed down for 2 weeks and then added another 2 weeks on top of that. After that, I was like, it's a little bit of a head scratcher. What are we doing here?
Yeah.
After, a full month. But at the beginning, I could understand how there was a lot of confusion. We didn't know what was going on. I myself, when the vaccine rolled out, I felt like I did not need the vaccine for my health. I keep myself, like I said, I try to, practice what I preach, keep
Mhm.
myself healthy, felt like I did not need it for my own health. But felt that I was concerned to pass it on to unknowingly early on to a patient that was pregnant.
Yeah.
So I did get vaccinated for that reason. I got the Pfizer vaccine, but I felt that I got it under my own personal, fully informed consent. Feeling that, I had an autoimmune condition in the past, I felt like I'm putting myself at risk for that. but I was okay with it, taking on that risk. Um, so had Joe and I not been finished with our childbearing, that would have been the deal breaker. I would have
Yeah.
not. But we were done childbearing. So at that point, I got vaccinated. And we kind of split the difference in terms of risks because we were frontline workers. So Joe was taking the risk of getting the virus. I was taking the risk of the vaccine because at that time, I couldn't imagine that there was a product that would potentially harm us more than help us. I just couldn't, my brain couldn't go there, couldn't go that far. I
Yeah.
had a feeling that there was really something very, very not natural about the virus and the release of it, but, or the escape or whatever you want to call it. It was just not natural. But as far as the vaccine, my brain just wasn't not able to go to that level of planning. So,
Yeah.
so I did get vaccinated. And then after that, it was kind of like I was watching everything unravel in slow motion. And I thought, for me, the line in the sand would be if this is ever mandated, number one, and especially mandated on our kids. And that's when everything kind of unraveled for me in December 2021. We had a hearing, a health and welfare committee meeting at our state capitol that was to discuss this. I don't want to call it a mandate, but it was a recommendation by Louisiana Department of Health to have our kids be vaccinated for the COVID vaccination the following year, and it was this odd, very broad age range from 6 months all the way to college age, and everybody in between, private, public school, daycare, everybody. And I was just like, okay, there's my line in the sand. We did not vaccinate the kids because we did not feel that the risk or the benefit would have outweighed the risk. So I went to testify, and that's when, my
Hit the fan.
Yeah. Yes. Basically. And the awakening, Evelyn's great awakening happened. But I call it that because, I was sitting in the committee room on the Capitol. It was just shocking to see what was not reported on the news. In fact, it was, the opposite of what was reported on the news. I really admired at the time, Jeff Landry was our Attorney General, invited RFK Jr. and RFK Jr. spoke, and it was just how he stuck to the science when he presented. All he presented was Pfizer's data that they presented to the FDA for approval, and he was slandered. But of course, it wasn't described what he spoke about. So,
of course not.
It was I tell people that's really when I grew up, when I saw how the world worked, because I left that building and thought this is going to be all over the news, and it was the opposite.
Yeah.
So
totally
after that,
stuff.
I just, really, really, the rest of the journey was really, Joe and I kind of committed ourselves to saying, this whole, what's happening in the world is very, very depressing. And what we want to do is just kind of just shine light on things. And so part of that is, stick to what we know, which is health matters, and we're passionate about it. So that's what we're going to do. And that's what gave me so much joy to hear the feedback from last year's event, that it made people happy, to bring them together. That was, it was wonderful.
And I'm going to go ahead and put the event link in the chat. Let's see. It takes a second.
Thank you.
Here we go. And we'll put it in the show notes as well. But why don't you talk for a minute about you've already talked a little bit about the goal, but kind of the vibe, who's going to be there, who should come. I think everybody should come if you care about your health or, your future. Come. It's a wonderful, wonderful group of people.
Absolutely. So the goal is twofold, I guess in 2 words: community and education. So the community piece we covered. The education is we have it organized in vendors and speakers. And first, let me back up a little bit and say that this is a complete volunteer effort. We're not taking any money. In fact, we've had some generous sponsors that offered to sponsor the event, but we said politely thank you, but no, because we don't want to be beholden to what can and cannot be discussed at the event. So we're not taking any sponsorships, but what we are doing is, and so in turn, we're not charging vendors, but we're not paying speakers either. So the whole thing is volunteer volunteer effort. So the way we're doing it is vendors are invited to come join. It's basically anyone in the community who has a passion for health and wellness and is doing something to the effect of teaching the public about what they're doing and helping the public through either their practice, their clinical practice, their business, or their product, and then also have a passion for educating their patient or their client about that. And that kind of touches on, in my world of medicine, informed consent. You know, when you
Yeah.
educate somebody about them, tell them the pros, the cons, how could this, help you in the bigger picture and the smaller picture, and then could there be any downside? That's informed consent. So at this event, vendors are encouraged to showcase their own practices and businesses and products. And then there are speaker sessions as well, where speakers, let's say providers from their practices, will come and talk about what they do in their practices, but also educate on certain topics. So the whole event is predicated on developing community and educating one another on health and wellness. Setting it up to where there's vendors and speakers, the whole idea is that not only does the public get a chance to be exposed to these topics and learn from them, but also the vendors and speakers also can network and keep creating that web so that they can share each other's resources, refer patients to one another, so that we can kind of use this as a springboard to being able to take care of one another in the community as a network, not as silos.
I love that. And there are some amazing practitioners across this state of Louisiana. It's amazing. I mean, I live down in the Houma area, and we have a couple down here who do just
Mhm.
really tremendous work. And so it's such a blessing to just be able to it's also encouraging. Like if some kind of health crisis were to come, you feel that there are people here that you could reach out to who would not gaslight you, who would not tell you that nothing's
Mhm.
wrong, or who would not tell you that the only way is the most dramatic, most pharmaceutical intervention way. Um,
Right.
what are some of the topics you're looking forward to hearing?
Okay. Oh, and I did want to mention,
Go
as
for it.
I'm learning everything, that have not thrown the conventional medicine baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah.
I do believe there is a place for conventional medicine, and that's why I wanted to learn kind of it all. I mean, we're always learning. That's the more you learn, the more you learn. You have to learn more. There is a place for conventional medicine, absolutely. So that's why I really am very big in collaborating and discussing with other providers, so we know what pieces and parts that we need. There's a time
Yeah.
for antibiotics. There's definitely a time for surgery. So it's just knowing that there are so many different options, that if you implement them early on, these holistic options, that you may never get to that point of needing medicines.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, unfortunately, where some people are at the point of needing surgery or medications, where we can sometimes be past the point of holistic medicine. But surprisingly, if you implement a lot of them and have a lot of drive to do that, there you can reverse even terrible chronic illness. So, so anyways, I'm sorry, what was your question? I wanted to
No, I think that's a great
some of the
explanation.
topics.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's see some topics. we have general topics that we'll touch on again, like last year, like spirituality being the foundation of health. Ultimately, everything springs from that. If our mind, soul, and heart is not in a good place, we are going to manifest that in our physical self, whether it's subconsciously crunching your stomach and then getting stomach pains over time. That's a simple example, but we can manifest in different ways. So that's always going to be an anchor in this event, is our faith, life, and
And I have
spirituality.
I have heard, Evelyn, multiple people say recently that if you want to get healthy, you have to deal with your trauma first. Like if you're trying to get healthy and
Very
you're
much so.
still tied in with some trauma in your life, in your
Yes.
history, that it actually makes it more difficult for you to heal.
You are 100% correct. And I wanted to say the speaker that will be speaking to this is Pastor Tony Spell. He and his
Mm.
wife, Sister Shay, were very kind to offer their venue space, their large venue space that even makes all this possible. The Revolution Square behind their Life Tabernacle Church in Central is where this is located. They have a 5,000 seat venue space for some of their events, especially their youth events for in the summer for Revolution. But he will be speaking to this, and you are 100% correct. Unfortunately, when we're very little, under 3 years of age, we don't have a lasting memory, and so perpetrators know this and can really cause some trauma early on,
Mm.
and that unfortunately does get seeded subconsciously, and it can manifest itself in physical ailments later in life.
Wow.
So that is true. So one of our speakers last year spoke, Andy Yarborough. He spoke about how he works as a psychologist with spirituality as part of the process. So
Mm.
that's wonderful. Another topic, let's say that really the foundations of our nutrition can be found in our soil, where the food comes from, how does it extract a soil nutrients and minerals. So
Yeah.
Grant and Allison Guidros from Organic Fullness Farms, they wonderful farm here in Baton Rouge. They have a PMA. You can sign up for their produce continuously. They give great talks about regenerating soil, starting even backyard gardens. So kind of the foundations of health, and seeing that little seed that we talked about and
Yeah.
how it grows. There's something about watching that and seeing that can transform even your well-being. It's wonderful. A novel topic this year is going to be about EMF. So, and I'm going to mention this because if my friend ever sees this, it's Dr. Holly Grow. She's a retired ophthalmologist from New
She's gonna
Orleans.
fuss.
And
She's
she's
gonna
going to
fuss
be
you.
like, "What are you doing with these things in your ears?" But I specifically asked her to talk about this topic because I'm researching it. And she says, I was like, "What's the solution for this convenience that I can't get away from?" And she says it's air tubes. So wired, and you've heard of them. Okay, so this was new to me. So we'll be looking at getting those. But she says we should call EMF electromagnetic, not frequency, but radiation,
Mm.
electromagnetic radiation, because that is a more accurate word of how it is affecting our body. She'll be talking about all the impacts to our body from that, for
Excellent.
example. So that's another exciting topic. So yeah, we've got more. We will be the link that you'll be posting has a link to the Facebook account, and people there can look on Facebook. We'll be publishing the topics later today,
Awesome.
and all
Wonderful.
the speakers. Yeah.
Yeah. And a reminder that the event is in Baker at Tabernacle Church in Revolution Square behind it. And
Yes, this
give us the
Saturday.
times. It's 9 to
It's
3:30?
9 to 3, 9 to
3.
3:30. Yes, yes. We've got vendors setting up from 7 to 9. I'll be there at 6. If anybody wants to come early for a little breakfast beforehand, we've got some breakfast going till 9 o'clock. The event officially starts at 9 and till 3, and then we figured we'll give another half hour for the vendors
Awesome.
afterwards.
Well, and if anyone's coming, I will be there. I will be a vendor as well. I'm really, really looking forward to it and just appreciate you so much for putting this on. I remember when we were closing out last year, people are like, can you do another one? Can you do this quarterly? Like, because this
Yes.
is a massive undertaking. So I'm sure you're not signing up quite yet to do it quarterly, but I think that's
Yeah,
just a
not
testament.
quarterly. Looks like yearly so far, and, we do have the date. I'm happy to announce for next year, it's gonna be August 15th,
Okay.
2026. So we
Okay.
got that. Put a
Awesome. Save
plug.
the date,
That
everybody.
this one, yeah, this one's this Saturday.
Awesome. Well, God bless you, Evelyn. Thank you so much for joining me today. I just want to remind our listeners that tomorrow we will have 107 joining us back on the State of Freedom. We will be back here with you at 10 a.m. Central, and he should be a very interesting um, guest. He always is. He'll be talking about his perspective on chemtrails and geoengineering, which is, I think,
Hmm,
running counter to some of the stuff we've been hearing. So
hmm,
get ready for that. And he will also give us an update on what's happening at the federal level with elections, which there is a lot going on there. So,
hmm.
with all that being said, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day and God bless you, Evelyn. Thank you for joining us. We will be seeing you on Saturday.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored.
Meet the world's first living, full spectrum, certified organic CBDA hemp extract. Ness's hemp oil was extracted from seed to bottle without chemicals, solvents, or heavy metals, and it surpasses world class standards for purity. This pure and powerful CBDA has been proven to reduce aches and pains, ease mental tension, and promote better sleep. To get yours today, visit the Shop Our Partners page at freedomstate.us. Thank you for joining me on For the Love of Freedom today. You can stay updated on the show and upcoming guests on all of the State of Freedom platforms. And a reminder that we are live on Tuesdays at 2:30 p.m. Central Time.